No, I was going to say though, it's actually crazy that you brought up just how aware you are because I was just thinking last night about the interview and stuff like this. And that was one of the questions I wrote down. Have you always been so aware, right? And
Yeah.
just like I told you when we were at Clever, like just the way like when we had our first conversation, I told you it felt like you were staring through my soul, right? You're
Yeah.
just staring, and we're on Zoom, right? And I could feel that you're like super aware of everything that's going on. And even when I was hanging out with you and your family, your baby girl, she started crying, right? And it's just crazy because you're teaching her how to control her emotions and be
Yeah.
aware of her emotions at such a young age, right? She started crying, and you just get real close, and you're like, "Hey, breathe, get happy, right? Be
Yeah.
happy." And it's just like that. Like that's so powerful. When I was thinking about it, just over the weekend, I'm like, "Yo,
Yeah.
this little girl is gonna be super dangerous because she can control. She learned how to control her emotions at such a young age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What makes that important to you to just pass that on and just yeah."
Yeah. It's dude, that's like one of the most important things to me. That's actually the most important thing for me is what you said right there, and it's the thing I'm most proud of from a parenting standpoint, and from her. Like what I'm proud of my girls is their ability to be aware of their emotions and be able to control their emotions. And it goes back to what I told you guys in my story is like I was someone who was not in control of our emotions. I think we all probably share a lot of that as well. As like there's been times where we just felt out of control. We had no system, we had no process. No one taught us how to be able to control our emotions, put ourselves in situations where we could use that energy. Because all like when we say emotion is just an energy, and a lot of it comes from anger, anxiety, fear. Like those are just those are energies that we perceive as being negative, and we take that and like I'm angry, and so you act angry, right?
Yep.
But if you can take that energy and you can teach somebody how to perceive that as a positive thing, it's like that energy that you're feeling, like that's happiness, like that's happiness. That anxiety you're feeling, that's excitement, right? That sadness you're feeling, and you're able to flip that around, like that's like the first step in happiness is feeling sadness.
Mm.
And you're able to teach somebody that, their life becomes totally different. You don't have people who are depressed. You have people who have suicidal thoughts. You don't have people who are entitled or think the world is out to get them. You have people out there who are trying to serve and try to make the world a better place. And so that's my role with our kids, is to teach them those skill sets at a very young age, to give them the foundation that they actually can focus on things that actually matter, which is serving rather than just try and take care of their damn selves, right? Like we live in such a selfish culture that, and in all fairness, because we've been taught the skills how to not only just take care of ourselves, but if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of other people. And so my goal is to have our kids be like, dude, like I got this, right? And so they have the attention to be able to serve the world and make the world truly a better place.
That's so dope, bro. That's so important because it's almost like learning a language, right? If you try to learn a language at 20 years old, it's much tougher than trying to learn it at
Yeah,
1 year old or 2 year old. So as they're being developed from a young age, and you're instilling that mindset into them, bro, it's a wrap. Like your kids are going to be high level. They're going to be way higher level than Logan.
yeah, 1,000 times. And
It's going to be
here's an
crazy.
advantage I have that most people don't have, and it's actually the advantage that Pace has, and it's probably the reason why Pace is an amazing teacher as well. Is so I met my wife 8 years ago. My wife was married at the time I met her. She was going through her divorce, but my wife came with a 4-year-old little girl, right? And so not was only did I deciding to date this woman, but I was also deciding to date her 4-year-old little girl with her. And so I was able to become dad almost overnight, right? And um, my wife's ex-husband, he ended up moving away down to Texas about a year or two after we got together. So Kobe, who was our oldest daughter, she lived with us full time, right? And so I literally became live-in dad, and I got to experience what parenting was really quickly, and I missed the first 4 years of being able to build rapport with somebody, being able to have somebody call me dad. I had to come in, I had to insert myself into a situation which it sounds like we've all been in before, where our parents split up, and do we love our the people who date our mom or dad who come in? Right? Absolutely not. I hated all my. So when my parents got divorced, my mom started dating a guy right away who's actually one of my it was my first girlfriend's dad, right? Which was awkward. But I hated him. Like I hated her and I hated him for a very long time. I didn't talk to my mom for probably 2 years. Like legitimately did not talk to her for 2 years. And this was right before cell phones, right? So I'm not that much older than you guys, but this was right before cell phones became popular. And so my mom had to literally knock on me and my dad's door. We live in a trailer after my parents split up. She'd knock on the door. I can remember opening the door and like chatting with her at the front door. I wouldn't even let her come in the house. Like that's how angry I was at her. And she ended up marrying that guy who she started dating, and I love him today. I adore him, and I'm very grateful for her. And I tell her this. I was like, thank you for not giving up on me. And Danny is his name. Like, thank you so much for like they always poured into me. They still like, even though I was a dick. I was such a dick. And I wouldn't even talk to them, and they still continue to love him. They still continue to pour in me. And like today, they are one of my favorite people, right? But going back to the conversation of we hate our step parents, right? Like it's part of the game, and it was awesome because I had that experience, right? I had that, so I felt called. I felt prepared to step into this role, and I did things totally different than all the people who try to come into my life and try to like pretend to be my dad or my stepmom, right? And I did not give this girl anything she wanted, right? Like I was like hard on her. I was like, I didn't try to win her over. I didn't try to like give her candy and cookies and like come be my friend. I was like, I'm being me. And you know what? You're disrespectful. Because she was a very disrespectful little kid. And I was like, I ain't hacking that. Like, that ain't gonna fly. Right. And so if you guys can probably imagine, like this was it was an uphill battle, and that created friction between me and my wife Katie. Again, at the time she's not my wife, she's just my girlfriend. But like our very first anniversary date, our very first anniversary, we went to this hot springs, which is about 45 minutes away from us, right? It's great, amazing. And our very first anniversary, she spent it crying because I was just like, dude, like we have to change how we're parenting. Like this parenting is not going to work. And like I looked at what our vision was of what we needed to be in the future. And what was happening right now was like, we were not going to be able to be a family. We were like me and her were not going to be on the same page because there was like our values did not line up. And so we spent that first anniversary just crying, right? And just like getting all that stuff out. And we have had many conversations, like so many conversations. We still have those conversations, right? They're not as like sometimes as dramatic, but like we still have those hard conversations. But it's the reason why that my relationship with Katie right now is like, dude, it is so good, it's so strong because we literally have these direct conversations consistently. The reason why Mai and Kobe, she's now 12, at the time she was 4, why our relationship is so good and it's built on so much respect is because like she knows what she's going to get from Pops, right? And this is something that's really cool that it just became something that we did when we had our youngest Lainey, is that I wanted Kobe and Lainey to both call me the same thing, right? And so Kobe has a dad, and I respect that, and I never tried to be her dad. I never ever did, right? And she never called me dad ever. She still doesn't call me dad. But we created a name. We called it Pops, right? So I am Pops to Kobe, and I am Pops to my youngest daughter, Lainey. You said both call me Pops because I wanted them both to be able to call me the same thing. I didn't want her to call me Pops or Lainey to call me Dad, and then Kobe to call me something else. And so like I've always thought about that from that standpoint of like me being in Kobe's standpoint, like how would I want someone to come in? How would I want a stepdad? I want someone to act if it were me. And so that's the advantage I had in that relationship with her, is that I came from a very similar background that she did, from a divorced parents, and I hated all my step parents. And I use that to my advantage with her. And now, again, she comes to me for advice on things, and we have a very good relationship built on respect, and like she knows what she's going to get from me, and I expect the same thing from her.